Oh, I really should have done that to the cloud. Okay, I'm going to have to make notes then on the side here, I think. Okay, let me just get my notepad ready. Yep, I am old-fashioned. If nothing else, I am old-fashioned. Okay, hello. Let me actually turn on my camera today as well. Hi there. It's good to see you. Thank you for being with me today. So happy to have you here. Today we are talking about the business of iridology, as in how to have an iridology business. We're going to talk about learning iridology. And for those of you who are watching me, I will be looking away from the camera a lot because I am monitoring 3 computer monitors to make sure I stay on top of what we are doing. So my apologies for not having great eye contact today. That is just the way it flows sometimes. All righty, so here we are. I would love it if you would introduce yourself. Maria is always ahead of the game when she joins us. She's giving us greetings from the Philippines. How wonderful is that? I would love to know where you're from, for those of you who haven't already introduced yourselves. And I would love to know what your background is in iridology. And that might sound a little bit like asking for a kiss on the first date, but it will help me to make sure that I give you the information you need. I also want you to know that I encourage you to ask questions during our time together today. So as we're talking about different topics, if you have a question, please type it in. I'll be monitoring my phone for Instagram, one computer monitor for Facebook, and the other computer monitor for the people who are with me live on the webinar. We've got W. Lane Ball from North Carolina. Hello, it is so good to have you with us today. All right, so some things that I want to just clear out of the way first, some bits and pieces. So this first part is going to be kind of a little bit ragtag. There are lots of misconceptions about iridology that are being perpetrated by people who've been trained in archaic and disproven methodologies, and that gives us all a bad name. Iridologists who are up to date practice constitutional iridology, and this is where research is actually still being done. There are research projects happening using constitutional iridology, validating it, not just with, oh, I see this in someone's eyes, but validating it with genetic testing and with lab testing. So it's very exciting that this research is continuing with constitutional iridology. So again, I'm going to encourage you to pop into the chat and ask questions as you have them and to make comments as you have them. All righty? Okay, so now we are actually going to simply go to, okay, and I just need to make sure we're sharing. Oops. Just a moment, just a moment. I rarely do this, so I need to make sure I've got it done right. Did that, there we go. No, that didn't do it either. Okay, I really wanted to just have me on the screen, but apparently I'm not that tech savvy today. So we're just going to go with what we've got and not waste time on sorting out the tech here. Alrighty, so some credentials and why I feel like I am one of the best people to share this information with you. Okay, I got into holistic healing over 4 decades ago. I got into it for my own health problems. I had some problems. They weren't life-threatening, but they were just uncomfortable. They were inconvenient. And I was going to the doctor and the doctors were not giving me any answers. They kept running tests and they weren't narrowing it down. They weren't broadening it out. They were giving me nothing that was useful. And so I decided, that's not working. At that point in time, I met a fellow who knew a little bit about all kinds of natural things, and he started sharing all this information with me about herbs and nutrition and reflexology and iridology and just all kinds of things. And we fell in love and we got married, and we're still married today. So this is a good thing. But I grabbed onto that information. I dropped out of university. I had finished I had enough credits to graduate, but I didn't have enough in any one major. I was majoring in elementary and early childhood education. Then I moved to teach junior high and senior high. And then it was like, you know what? I don't like other people's kids this well. So with enough credits to graduate, I did not graduate. I dropped out instead, and we got married and we moved forward from there. So I have been in the holistic healing world for over 4 decades now. And in those years, I've written many books that I've self-distributed, and things like Pregnancy Naturally, the Herbal Birth Kit Handbook, Healthy Kits Naturally, The Essential Guide to Nature's Sunshine Products, Biokinesiology and Color Therapy Level 1 and 2, Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology Textbook. And I've designed and taught many classes. And the courses that I'm teaching now are Body Systems, Iridology and Herbology, Dynamic we'll put the teeth in straight tomorrow. Dynamic Iridology Assessment System for Health Professionals. And that's my core iridology program. That is the same as the IPA Level 1 and Level 2 program. I also teach Women's Holistic Health. And in the fall, I will be starting to teach the IPA Level 3 program as well. So stay with me to the end of today's workshop if you want to learn more about the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System program. However, for now, I really do want to get, let me just do this. I've been associated with IPA for many years. And in this past summer, just about a year ago, they created a Level 3 program. And I took the course. It was only for certified instructors, which I was already a certified Level 1 and 2 instructor. Then I did the Level 3 training, took the course, and I am now one of only 5 certified Level 3 instructors in the world. Okay, so I've had a long history of working with different styles of iridology, herbology, nutrition, aromatherapy, flower essences, different kinds of body energy work. And so I really do think that I am fairly well qualified for being able to help you with the questions I'm going to ask today. Now I'm going to stop the share and see what happens. Now that makes it so I can't, okay, oh yay, okay, this is working. Yay, okay, I love it when I figure out tech. Alrighty, so something that I want you to be very aware of as you're joining me today is this. I love questions. I really love questions. I love it when people who are with me ask questions because it tells me that you are working at processing the information. And that means that the information is working for you. We're getting somewhere with it. So please ask questions as you have them. I will ask you questions as well, and I would love to have answers back from you because that tells me that you haven't fallen asleep and you haven't just got this playing in the background. Okay, it tells me that you're absolutely focused with me. I tell my students in all of my courses, the only stupid question is the one you didn't ask. So please, please, please ask. Today's session is all about answering questions. Absolutely everything we're going to do is answering questions. I'm going to answer the most common questions that I receive from people who want to know about iridology as a profession. So, and remember, there's no right or wrong answers here. These are just my answers. And so I'm sharing with you 40 years of experience. All righty, are we ready to rock and roll with this? Let me know if we are ready to rock and roll. Okay, amazing. The first question is this. Let me just realign this other screen that I'm having to watch here. It's not letting me stay up to date. There we go. Okay, now it's working. How does using iridology with my clients help my clients? And how does it help my business? Those are 2 really important questions because if you're adding a new modality to what you do, it needs to have value for you and for your client. It needs to be progressing what you do. Adding another skill just to add another skill is not worth doing. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. In business, we don't like to waste money and we don't like to waste time. Do you agree with me that time is important and we need to use it wisely and we need to use our money wisely? So how does iridology help with my clients and how does using iridology with my clients help my clients? When I'm using iridology with my clients, and I do it by taking eye photos and popping them up onto the computer screens, which is why I have so many screens, so that I can show my clients exactly what we're talking about. It helps them because as I explain the markings that are relevant to their situation, it has meaning for them. It grabs them. They can see I'm not just creating things out of thin air. They can actually see, when I show them a fermentation sign in the sclera, when I show them a contraction furrow, and I describe, for example, with the contraction furrow, that it means they internalize their stress, that they maybe take on more than they should, that they learn how to set boundaries. They need to learn how to set boundaries, that they maybe need to be aware of what their stress levels are and adjust their program, their supplement program accordingly. It resonates with them. And they begin to understand that their eyes talk about them. They don't talk about anybody else, it talks about them. And it helps us to create connection, and my clients feel very understood when I can relate, when I can teach them a little bit about their eyes. I never do a top to toe analysis. I only choose 2 or 3 markings that I see in their eyes that correlate to the problem they've asked for help with. And as we do that, it gives me a deeper understanding of why they have the symptom they do, what organs are likely involved, and what pathways I need to take to help them correct things, to help bring their body back into balance. So this is so important because so many skills that we learn in holistic wellness are standalone skills that don't integrate well with everything else we do. Iridology, however, helps me to tie in, to bring in the nutrition, the herbology, the aromatherapy, the flower essences, even the lifestyles and life skills work that I do. Right? So when I look at someone's eye and I see an indication that says your liver genetically wants to be cranky with you and you're drinking 5 cups of coffee a day, well, here's what coffee does to your liver. If you want your liver to work better to help you deal with these other symptoms you've got, then I'm suggesting we experiment with taking away the coffee for 10 days to see how you feel. And when they see those connections and they do the experiments and they go, "Ooh, I had no idea coffee made me feel like that," right? I feel so much better without it. And they understand how I arrived at that. It sticks. It sticks. They're able to stick with it. And so I find that iridology helps my clients understand where we are headed. And iridology helps me create cohesive step-by-step programs so that my clients can have better success with their health. Question number 2, what styles of iridology have I learned? I think there is value in studying many styles of iridology so that you can understand the differences, understand their strengths and weaknesses, and then work with the one or the ones that resonate the best with you and that you find to be the most effective. So over the years, I have studied Bernard Jensen's style of iridology. My original teacher was a first generation Jensen student. She'd studied in California with him a couple of times. And then I learned Rayed. We had a lovely instructor here in Calgary where I am. Her name was Chris Smith, and she was deep into Rayed. So she taught Rayed, and I loved what I learned from her about Rayed, which is the emotional, the personality side of this. And then I learned constitutional. Now, and I went to constitutional. I was getting tired of what I was doing with the Jensen iridology because it just didn't seem to be working well for me. And so from there with constitutional, and I studied that with Bill Caradonna and Harry Wolf, it opened up a whole new vista. It helped me to see clearly the limitations of what I'd already learned and to understand that there was so much more that wasn't stilted, that wasn't confined. And so that leads into question number 3 of which style of iridology do I use with my clients and why did I choose them? Well, constitutional is my primary. With Jensenian, I was taught to tell the client what was wrong. With constitutional, I was taught to use the eyes and the client's symptoms to ask questions to get a deeper understanding of what is out of balance. And that just resonated with me so well. and it creates such deep rapport for me and for my clients that it's an amazing tool to have. I can't imagine doing a client session without iridology. I truly can't. And I take iridology photos of each client about once per year. And I'm not monitoring so much for iris changes, because really what we will see for iris changes is pigment can surface, a lipemic diathesis can form or can start to form. Where we see more rapid changes, it's in the sclera, which is situational, not genetic, mostly. And so I like to shoot the photos annually to compare things, to see what the sclera is teaching us and to see if anything else has emerged in the irides. You know, I also love rayet. I dabble in it. I'm certainly not as proficient as some people are, but I use the parts of rayet that are important for the work that I do. You know, when I'd studied Jensenian iridology under a local instructor and under another instructor as well. And the second instructor had quite a reputation and also had a herbal company, so that was cool. I heard that he was doing a course in Vancouver, which for me is either a 12-hour car ride or an airplane trip. So I talked a few of my colleagues into coming out to Vancouver for the weekend for this course. We got out there and it was clear by the end of the first night that what we had just paid for was a 2.5-day herbal commercial for this fellow's herb class. In the first 3 hours, we learned zippo about herbs, like nothing. And that was very frustrating. I was spitting nails angry. I was so angry. And by the end of day 2, we had talked about 3 or 4 of the things for iridology that he had in the outline. By the time we got to day 3, he ended up covering like 75% of the curriculum in the last 3 hours. In that time frame, he was talking about he was showing pictures on the screen. And of course, I had some other Jensen training already. So I'm in this course and I see a marking on the screen. And I went up to it and I framed the marking and I said, "What is this?" And he said, "I don't see what you're looking at." I said, "This right here, what is this? What does it mean? I need to know more about this." He said, "I don't see what you're looking at." And other students were saying, "Yeah, what is that thing?" And he insisted there's nothing there. And we're going, well, yeah, there is. So that really was my final turnoff for Jensenian. And right about then is when I learned about constitutional, that this other kind of iridology existed. I was able to connect with Bill Cardona and Harry Wolf. I ordered their VHS videotapes and I started studying them. And it was only like 6 hours of training, but it catapulted my iridology so far ahead. Then one night I was looking at some iris photos and I didn't understand what I was seeing. So just on a whim, I thought, I'm going to call this phone number for the National Iridology Research Association, which happened to be Bill Cardona's phone number. So I phoned him and he picks up, and it's like on a Friday night at like 8 o'clock. I'm thinking nobody will be there if this is the office, and he picks up and I'm going, holy dude, this is weird. So he says, hello. And I say, hi, is Bill Cardona available, please? He said, this is Bill. And I said, Bill, you don't know me. My name is Judith Cobb. And he went, hey, wait a minute. Are you the Judith Cobb? And I went, maybe. And I said, why? And he said, do you write for this publication? I said, yes, I do. He said, I love your stuff. How can I help you? So we did that bit of mutual admiration for a moment. And I said, I've got this problem. I'm looking at this set of eyes. And remember, this is before the internet. He cannot see the photo. And I described that set of photos to him in the constitutional language. And he said to me, well, when you see an eye that looks like that, do you see this as well? And I said, no, I don't. And he said, well, if you did, you want to think about these questions and this direction. Then he said, do you see blah, blah, blah? And I said, yes, I do. He said, well, then you want to think about taking it this other direction and consider these questions. And I sat there marveling at the fact that I had the one teacher who could see the picture blown up to a 4-foot by 4-foot image, but he couldn't see the thing I was talking about. And here I have this other teacher who can't see the image, but knows exactly what I'm talking about. That was the final thing for me that made me decide that constitutional was where I needed to be. All right, so How do we include iridology in an appointment? Let's talk about this, and then we're going to touch a little bit on marketing as well. So how do I include iridology in an appointment? My client comes in for the first appointment. I ask them, what would you like my help with? We have a little conversation about their symptoms, how long they've had them, what makes them better, what makes them worse. Then I do take photos of their eyes. I've got a 24 megapixel digital camera with the proper lighting setups. I've actually got 2 different lighting setups depending on my client. Then I put their images up on the computer, and we do a quick analysis based on what the client needs. And from there, I'm able to make 2 or 3 very specific dietary recommendations, and often 2 or 3 very specific supplement recommendations. In follow-up appointments, I'm going to ask the question of how did it go? What changes have you noticed? How successful were you in sticking with the recommendations that we had suggested? Find out what their progress has been, what their mindset has been, and from there find out, is the problem, does it feel like the problem is resolved? If it is, what else do we want to work on? If it's not, how do we want to come at it from a different angle? Right? I can go back to their eye photos. So let's say in the second appointment, they say, yes, problem number 1 is gone. It's great. I feel fabulous. Now I have problem number 2, right? Because often as we get rid of the big problems, we can see the smaller problems as well. So now I've got their eye photos already. I can look at their eye photos in the context of problem number 2 and pick the markings that correlate to problem number 2, educate my client, give them a bit of homework, and move forward from there. Now, how do we market iridology? I can't go into huge details. We do a lot of discussion of marketing in what I call office hours inside of the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course. Because marketing is not a part of the actual core curriculum, but it's an important part for business success. So it's not included in the 45 hours of study, but it is included in the extra mentoring that we do. Marketing has changed a lot in some ways, and it's not changed at all in other ways. Marketing, you need to decide if you want to work physically, as in face-to-face in the same space, or virtually. That will have some impact on where and how you market. There is a lot of competition, but I'm going to tell you the market is not saturated. And so what you need to do is you need to know how to get your message out there. Now, most people, when they market incorrectly. They throw out a big net that has big holes, right? And so they're hoping to catch sardines or shrimp with this net that has big holes, and it's not going to work. And what you're after is actually the shrimp and the sardines. You're after a very specific kind of client. And so you need to find out exactly what your client's problem is. And it's not poor health, it's migraine headaches, or it's irritable bowel syndrome, or it's menstrual cramps, or it's, do you see what I'm saying? It's a specific problem. You need to find at least 10 people who have that problem, and you need to have a really in-depth conversation with them to find out, how do they describe their problem? If they're talking to their best friend, how do they talk about it with their best friend? Because that's the kind of language that you would use in your marketing. Language that is hoity-toity, that is stuck up, that is very professional sounding, typically doesn't attract attention. But if you talk about migraine headaches that keep you in bed for 3 days, or you're begging your family to just be quiet because the noise hurts your head, someone who's got migraines like that and sees that in an ad is going to go, that's the practitioner who understands how miserable my life is. They can help me. Do you see what I'm saying here? Does that make sense? All right. So when we're talking about iridology, most people don't know what iridology is. So we need to approach this in one of 2 ways. We either have to educate them about iridology, that is the long way to do this, or we need to pick their specific problem. like the migraine headaches, and we need to educate them as to how iridology can give us insight to understanding why they have the headaches and what the best answers for them could be. Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference between those two things? A lot of people are still using email, and we're finding that email opens are way, way down. If you have an email list of people you know who are interested in what you do, maybe they're former clients if you've been in practice for a while, or they're current clients, you can start emailing them. If you've got a Facebook page, you can market there. If you do social media, that is great. If not, if you want to be working completely face-to-face locally, are there any places where you can do free workshops? Could you go to a yoga studio? So for example, if you're working with women with menstrual problems, is there a yoga studio or a fitness studio that works only with women? Would they allow you to come in and do a 1-hour webinar or 1-hour workshop on healthy approaches to menstrual cramps, and then let you do just a 3 or 4 minute pitch in that workshop on iridology and how it can help? That is another amazing way to build your business. All right, question 4, why do I love constitutional iridology? Now, again, if you're those of you who are with me, please, if you've got questions, type them in, ask questions. Why do I love constitutional iridology? I love constitutional iridology because it's based on science. And we can go back to my answers in question number 1 as well at the beginning of this. I love it because there's ongoing research. I love it because when something new is discovered that conflicts with something that we used to believe, constitutional iridologists let go of the past that is now has been proven inaccurate, and they adopt the current. They adopt what is the most accurate. You will find that that can be a huge challenge in iridology, that some people who've studied the non-constitutional and non-rayed styles are stuck in the past. They are not willing to move forward. And when you talk to them about it, their minds are closed tight like steel traps. They do not want to admit that something has improved. You'll find that with constitutional iridology, instead, we're saying, I want to keep up to date. It's okay that what we used to know has been proven wrong, because now we've got better information, right? Do you see the value in that? Such huge value in that. I also love constitutional iridology because of the support that Bill Cardona has given me. He was my face-to-face teacher. Interesting that in the past few years, I've actually connected with Harry Wolf too, and I adore the man as well. But Bill Cardona was my first constitutional teacher. I brought him to Canada twice to teach courses here. And the fact that even though my first course with him was in 1992, but I can still email him if I have questions, and I do. You know, I have one of those minds where I lay awake at night in bed and I go, I wonder, right? And so I will send it to Bill. Now, I know for sure that he's not going to respond the next day. He is a very busy naturopath. And so I know it's probably going to take him 2 or 3 weeks. And his response to me is probably going to be, sorry, this got buried in my emails, but I'm getting to it now. And it's going to be a 4 or 5 page answer, right? It's never just a yes or a no. He always explains things very thoroughly. So I adore the support he gives me. And that is exactly why I give my students the kind of support I do. So how do you learn iridology? Well, there's a lot of different options that are available to you, right? You can buy a book and you can study it that way. Is that the best way? Absolutely not. Why not? Because there are many nuances that cannot be taught from a book. And a book is not going to teach you how to read your client, not just to analyze their eyes, but to read your client, to understand how the eyes and the client, what they're saying, what the eyes are saying, can guide you to questions that will get you better answers, right? You can do a self-study course. I am just getting ready to launch a self-study course. that contains all of the curriculum of my professional level course. It has none of the support, like you don't get me at all. You get the materials. And so this is good if you want it as a hobby, or if you just want it for family use, and I shouldn't minimize it like that. If you want it for something other than professional use, then the home study course is great. It's self-paced, do it as you will. It's not going to lead to certification. You don't have the pressure of doing exams and things like that, right? Or there is the fully mentored course. You will find that there are many iridology instructors who teach face-to-face courses. I don't actually teach face-to-face because with a face-to-face course, number one, it would limit me to my geographic area, right? And number two, when most teachers teach face-to-face, they do it as either 2 3-day intensives to cover level 1 and level 2, or they do it as a 6-day intensive. My experience with my students has been that to meet once a week for 20 weeks, I know that's a long time. We introduce new concepts each week. It gives them time to study, to practice, to test what they've learned and bring it back to the next lesson if they've got questions, right? So when I talk about a fully mentored course, I mean, you've got time to study and practice and come back and ask questions. We have 2 additional hours of mentoring in a month beyond your classes. We have a social media group as well. And for social media and for the mentoring, even after you finish your course, you are never kicked out. You get to keep coming back as often as you need to, or as infrequently as you need to, whatever meets your needs. If you've got a case you're working on that's a challenge, then you can bring it into office hours or post it in our social media group, and you'll get answers and support with it. Right, so this is so important. So how do you learn it? How do you learn iridology? I suggest doing it online in live webinars where you can ask questions, get answers, but have time to study and practice in between. How does that sound to you? Does that sound like a good way to learn iridology, slow and steady, rather than dropping you into a pot of boiling oil? You know, it's the way my brain works. You know, intensives don't work for me at all. Let's talk about certification. Is it important to be certified? And what does it mean to be certified? So my first question has to be, where do you live? Right now, I have a student who's in Germany, and she's done the research. Even though she is learning iridology and she's going to be leaving Germany soon to live elsewhere, she is not legally allowed to practice iridology in Germany, even if she is certified. In Germany and in Russia and a few other places, only medical doctors are allowed to practice iridology. Okay, so you need to know that first off if you want to learn iridology as a profession. In North America, there is no regulation. And in England, you can also practice iridology without being licensed in any way, shape, or form. So is certification important? This is a very personal question. Certification with IPA means that you have done the coursework, you've done 3 different levels of exams, and you have been mentored. And you, on that 3rd exam, which is a quantitative exam, you have to get 80%, a minimum of 80%. And you also have to have proof of having completed a college level anatomy and physiology course. Now, for some people, certification is a sign of completion. And they like that complete feeling. And so that's great. Absolutely fabulous. Some people want the certification because they have other certifications, such as maybe they're a naturopath or a registered holistic nutritionist or a clinical aromatherapist. And if they have a certification in iridology, they may be able to add that into whatever insurance package they have for their own protection. And so for those people, certification may be important. For people who want to practice iridology, but are in an area where it's very safe, there's no risk of them ever having any legal issues with this, then they may not need to be certified. I think certification adds a certain level of credibility. And I think it's a powerful thing when your clients can see that you are certified, especially if they understand that this certification doesn't mean you just sat in on classes, but that it means that you've actually gone through exams to get here, right? So that is what certification is. Now, most of your clients probably won't really care whether you're certified or not. Most of them are intrigued by iridology, but they don't know much about it. And rarely will they even ask for your credentials. So it's really more what's important to you. How does it feel to you? And if you want certification, then I want you to know that the certification mentoring is something that I include for my students. Most other instructors charge extra for it. I include it for my students. All righty. So again, you just need to decide whether certification is important to you or not. What does it take to be successful as an iridologist? And Palo Santo Queen is saying, thank you for this info. You are so welcome. I'm glad you're with me on Instagram. Thank you for being there. What does it take to be a successful iridologist? Well, first off, you have to study hard. I kind of get a little cranky when I see that people have read a little booklet, or they've been hanging out on iridology websites, like iridology social media platforms, and watching lots of free videos, which I produce a lot of free videos, so I have nothing against free videos, but they're saying that they have training in iridology. No, you don't. You've got a hobby of iridology, right? And I'm really firm about that. You've got a hobby. To be an iridologist takes studying. It takes practice. It's more than knowing this is a lacuna and this is a transversal, right? It's about understanding what is the significance of that lacuna. Is it important for this person, or is this something that's been passed down like a birthmark? And how does this lacuna affect other things potentially, or how does what this lacuna represent potentially have an impact on other things, right? So you need to study. You need to be able to take correction, right? You need to be willing to let someone who knows more than you say, that wasn't a good assessment. That was an incorrect assumption. You told the client how they should feel. You need to ask the client how they should feel. And you need to put the ego aside and accept that correction with love, since it was given with love and it's meant to make you a better iridologist. I actually love it when my students catch me making a mistake. I am not perfect and I do make mistakes. And when they call me out on it, I am ever so grateful. I will publicly thank them. If we're in a class and one of them is going, hey, wait a minute, Judith, you just said, I'll go, you are right. I did just say cancel that. Thank you for correcting me. Thanks for giving me the chance to give you the right information. So I love it when my students correct me. I really, really do. It makes me a better teacher. What else does it take? It takes ongoing learning. Not only is there ongoing research into iridology, but we have ongoing research into how the human body functions. Think, for example, 10 years ago, if you had done an online study for the microbiome, you might have found 3 or 4 studies that have been published in reputable journals. Now, when you type in microbiome scholarly, you're going to come up with thousands of studies. We know so much more, and yet we don't know much more because there's more to discover. So we need to be open to ongoing learning about everything that affects iridology. We need to be willing to learn new concepts and let go of old concepts that are inaccurate. That's exactly what I had to do when I had to take my Jensen training. And don't get me wrong here. Bernard Jensen, I never met the man, but I've heard fabulous things about him. That he was wise, he was kind, he was intelligent, he was an amazing teacher. He saved thousands of people's lives that had been written off by the medical profession. So please don't ever think that I don't revere and love what Dr. Jensen was and who he was and what he did. He kept iridology alive in North America, but there was no further research coming through. And this is why when I learned about constitutional and learned about how iridology had been developing, I was able to walk away from so many of the stilted and confined black and white things I'd been taught from Jensen and move forward to the constitutional. So you need to be willing and flexible enough to let go of things that are not working, that have been disproved, and adopt and test the new things. You need to be able to explain things clearly in plain English to your clients. Your clients are not impressed with long words, right? They don't want you talking up here for them. They want you talking right here for them. So explain things in the simplest language you can without talking down to them. So if I'm working with a massage therapist, for instance, I know that she or he has more anatomy and physiology. I can bump it up a couple of notches. If I'm working with someone who's brand new to me and I can tell they don't have a lot of understanding of how their body works, I'm going to take it down a notch or two to give them that foundation. And as we work together, I will build that with them. So you always have to speak at your client's level. Really helpful to improve your success for you to have other modalities. Now, you've heard me mention herbology, nutrition, aromatherapy, flower essences, energy modalities, all kinds of things. This is really important. So many people come to me and say, I want to learn iridology. It is so cool. And when I ask them, what modalities do you have? Do you do herbology? No. Do you do nutrition? No. Do you do flower essences? No. Do you do aromatherapy? No. So you just want to learn iridology? Yeah. Well, what do you want to do with iridology? Well, I want to help people. Okay, here's my analogy. Learning iridology without having a modality and without understanding how the body works is like taking your car to the mechanic. Car's making a funny noise. You take your car in and the mechanic goes, yep, I know exactly what's wrong. It's this thing over here, but we don't do repairs here. You're going to have to go to Jim down the street. He knows how to repair things. Do you see what I'm saying? If you understand iridology truly and how it works, then you also need to know how to make recommendations that will be helpful. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, give me a big yes in the comments box. We also want to ask, let's see, what's the next question we want to talk about? Is it a smart idea to invest in a course right now? Absolutely. Why do I say that? I don't know if you've been watching what the global economy is doing. Everything is getting more expensive. Everything. You know, when I buy groceries, it's just for 3 of us. We've only got 1 child left at home. And it used to be I could shop easily, and I don't know how this translates in your world, but where we live, $450 a month could feed the 3 of us quite well, very healthfully. In the past 3 months, I've seen that go up to $600. On the technical side, I'm seeing every app platform that I use increasing their prices. What does that mean? It's going to mean that all tuitions on all courses are probably going to be going up. So this is probably a great time to get into a course. Can iridology be learned without a face-to-face course? It absolutely can. Absolutely can. And you know, with learning it online in a live webinar like what we're doing now, we're going to do a case study in a couple minutes here, you will get lots of practice online, supervised practice with me as your teacher. And then you can go and practice with people that are real live people in your own space and bring back questions about what you saw, how it worked, problems you had with it. So yes, you can learn iridology in a live online class. How can we take our iridology practice from being a paid by the hour, financially limiting business to a business that does not have an income cap? Right? If what you are doing is strictly one-on-one clients, you will have an income cap. And assuming you can actually fill your appointment book, which you probably can, you will still be limited by the number of hours in a day and the amount of energy you have to see those clients. So one of the things that I do recommend is that if you are suggesting supplements, I recommend that you sell supplements alongside your recommendations or alongside your appointments, right? And use that as a second stream of income. You know, some people say that's a conflict of interest. I disagree. And the reason I disagree that it's a conflict of interest is if I tell my clients to go to the health food store and buy vitamin XYZ or herbs ABC, the chance that they're going to come home with exactly what I've envisioned for them is pretty slim, because here in Calgary, our health food stores are well stocked, and you probably have 10 choices for each one of those things, and each of those choices is slightly different. And I don't know what quality my client is going to be bringing back, which means I can't tell them what results they're going to get. If I have the product and if I promote the product, if I sell them the products that I am recommending, I know exactly the quality they're getting. I know exactly how much I want them to be using because I know the potency and the purity. And I know if they run into a problem with it, exactly where the problem is and how to fix it. So in reality, I'm doing them a tremendous service by supplying the product for them. I'm also saving them a trip to the health food store, right? So that is a good thing. Question number 8, if I become an iridologist, do I have to buy an expensive iridology camera? Let's go back to our mechanic analogy. If your mechanic doesn't have the right tools to do the job, are you going to be impressed enough to take your car back to him? Probably not. So while you are in class, no, you don't need an iridology camera. You need a lighted magnifying glass and you need a pen light, which I keep mine on my desk because I do still use them, and these are ages old. You can, with practice, get decent, not great, but decent photos with your smartphone. And we do talk about that as needed in the office hours within the mentoring of my program. But eventually, as a professional, you are going to want to buy a proper camera and lighting setup to get the best possible photos, right? That you can upload onto your computer and work from there. So I do encourage my students to ultimately get a proper setup, but I don't want them getting that setup until they finish their schooling and possibly until they've certified. I want them to make sure they absolutely love this and they're going to use it to justify the investment. All right. Okay, so let's pop back into the screen share. And those are all the questions. Now, nobody else asked any questions, so let's see where this is going. All righty. So here we are. Just a little tiny bit of information here, and that is that the next start date of the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System is June the 2nd. If you've been intrigued by what you've learned today about how to learn iridology and how to be successful as an iridologist, and if you're looking for an iridology course to take you further, then I encourage you to book a call with me, book a Zoom call at tinyurl.com/insight-call, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about what the tuition is, what the payments are, what time of day the course runs, get all the details ironed out to get you enrolled. If you already know that you are ready to enroll on your own and that you want an iridology course with a live teacher who will mentor you for years to come, not just for the 20 weeks of the class or not just until you're certified, then I encourage you to go to tinyurl.com/irid-enroll-now, and you can see those URLs on your screen. Now, I promised you that we would do an IRIS assessment today. All righty, so here we go. Those of you who've stayed with me, congratulations, this is the reward. You get an IRIS assessment out of this. Way to go. Thanks for sticking with me. This is F-Jolene. F-Jolene was in her mid-30s when she came to me, and she had fertility issues. She had been trying to get pregnant for the last couple of years. She had conceived once and had miscarried. Now, this is only her left iris, because her left iris is what tells me what I needed to see. One of the things, and for those of you who are with me on Instagram, I'm going to move my camera closer for you. One of the things that I want you to see here is that, I'm going to see if turning this light off actually gives you a better picture. Not really, didn't make much of a difference. Okay. I want you to look at how this image looks very 3D. Can you see that here? It looks like we're looking deep into holes in her eye. Can you see how this fiber looks like it's laid right on top? Like if you were to run your finger across the surface of her eye, it would snag on that fiber. Can you see all that? So we're looking for layers in her iris. And what we're seeing here is we've got layers, literally layers of fibers. A lot of people would say this is a true brown eye, and I would have to say that it is as well, although it could be a very dark mixed eye, but I would call it a true brown eye. When we see so many openings like this, collectively, it tells us that there may be some challenges genetically with the collagen in her body that she may not hold together well. We see with all of these layers, we can see that there are layers of fiber in her eye. So when we actually look right here and we see these little threads that are in here, this is not the top layer of fiber. This is down a couple of layers. Now we're talking millimeters. Like this is not thick at all, but we are looking down into the eye. We can see that there's shading. We've got the dark shading in many of these areas, and this tells us where areas of our body are less resilient. This is genetic. We're not going to change that because we don't change her genes. We know we can change genes, but most people aren't willing to do that much work. We also look again, just let me find my notes here. These eyes, this eye specifically suggests that there may be a personal or family history of the MTHFR defect. This is why it's so important to know your anatomy and physiology, because if you've done a good anatomy and physiology class, you probably already know what MTHFR means and how, if she actually does have the MTHFR defect, how that would affect her fertility, right? And it also, the MTHFR defect, as well as the fact that she has brown eyes, tells us that her liver maybe genetically has an attitude problem, which can also mess with her cholesterol formation, which can alter her hormone production, which can mess with her fertility. Are you seeing how with iridology, we can trace things back? But you do need that foundation in anatomy and physiology. We see a slight cloudiness sitting over the outer edge of her eye. This also suggests that she probably has a bit of a liver enzyme issue that is maybe affecting her carbohydrate metabolism. And that in and of itself, or that combined with all of these other markings we see and the idea that she might have MTHFR, also suggests that she might be PCOS. So when I met with her, I asked her, because she was a little overweight, she had gone on to a low carbohydrate diet and was losing weight. She had, in doing that, taken her menstrual cycles from being about 75 days down to about 42 days. And all of that is telling me she probably did have PCOS. So I asked her, has anyone ever said you've got PCOS? Notice I didn't tell her she had it. I asked her if someone else had said that. So I'm not diagnosing, I'm just gathering information. She said, yes, the doctor suspected it. And I'm going, yeah, makes sense with your symptoms, right? And so we continue to work with her carbohydrate cleanup. We worked with a methylated maternity vitamin for her. We did liver support with her, and she was able to get pregnant. Now, we did not have to go into absolutely every marking that we see in her eyes. Seriously, we didn't, because many of these have nothing to do with fertility. They have nothing to do with her liver. And so we focused on the things that we saw in her eyes, and only those things that would teach us about her fertility. That is the way to do iridology in a live session and keep your sessions down to 1 hour or 1.25 hours and still have tremendous progress and influence on your students' health. So again, we only need to focus on the things that are important to the situation at hand. Does that make sense? If that makes sense for you, let me know in the comments. So again, the invitation is, if you already have an anatomy and physiology course under your belt and you want to learn iridology at a professional level, give me a call. Let's schedule a Zoom call using that first link, tinyurl.com/insight-call. If you do not have a college level anatomy and physiology course under your belt, reach out to me, send me a message, and I will send you a link to the course that I recommend that has been approved by the International Iridology Practitioners Association. I don't even get commission for recommending this course, right? This anatomy course. It's just a course from a school that I really believe in. And so if you need A&P, let me know and I'll send you that link. If you already know that you are ready to enroll, maybe you've been hanging out with me on these Thursday morning webinars for a long time, and maybe you are ready to get enrolled and you're thinking, yeah, I'm just waiting for an invitation. Thanks for asking. Just go on over to tinyurl.com/iride-enroll-now, and you can take care of the enrollment completely on your own. Right? So you can totally bypass me and I'll just get notice that you have enrolled, and I will be in touch with you to get you set up for the June 2nd start date. So with that, my friends, just wondering if there are any questions, anything about the business of iridology, anything about learning iridology, anything general about the iridology course, dynamic iridology assessment system, anything at all? Give it just a few seconds. Talk about the weather while we're doing that. It's really cold and blustery here. Not a nice day outside at all. I went out to my greenhouse and enjoyed being in there with my plants because it felt so much warmer than it does outside. But it doesn't look like we've got any more questions coming in. So thank you so much for being with me for this past hour. I truly appreciate it. And I look forward to hearing from you very soon. Have a fabulous day. Bye for now.